Hello, hello. Grown Black folks talk. Grown conversation about leaving exhaustion and foolery for freedom. Now, this is about a week early. Actually, 10 days. Well, it'll be 9 days early when you see it. I'm not up on the hill yet. You'll see this Saturday morning, and I'll be taking care of things and heading up on the hill shortly thereafter, hopefully. But you haven't seen me since last Saturday when I was in one of my quiet places on that hill. Because if I'm going to say that Mr. and Ms. Gray are exhausted, maybe I need to give us a chance to rest and marinate and listen to that. I made so many videos this week and deleted them. Meanwhile, I had a lot of conversations and I took the time to get myself some rest and some peace and to take a day off, really. I arranged the stuff I needed to publish about a week or two ahead so that I could have a day to be outside and think. Really, the way out of these ridiculous arguments that we are having, the way out of this cycle of violence, which is claiming darn near 30 Black lives a day, 25 Black women, 25 Black men, 4.5, we'll go ahead and round that up to 5 Black women a day, is actually what we are all still seeking is freedom. And our ancestors did not have a chance to have that conversation on June 20th of 1865. We have not had time to have the conversation since because 100 years after Juneteenth, the original, Nina Simone was still writing songs about I wonder what it would feel like to be free. We still don't have an answer to this. Maya Angelou is sitting up here talking about I know what a caged bird sings, and no one has asked the question. That is a tremendous point. Why is the bird still caged? I'm not taking anything out of Mother Nina or Mother Maya. These are important Black women elders. I'm not even here to take stuff off of Father Frederick or Father Martin. I'm not taking anything away from them because all of them are attempting to find a way to something that we are still struggling with. And I think I have found out what it is. And unless we can accept this, then there is no freedom possible. Until we accept two things, and I think we've done well majoring on one, but we have not done well majoring on the second. The first, I am not a chattel. I am worth more than to be a slave. I think we've done relatively well with that. I think history says that Black people have done relatively well with that. However, our codependency has kind of slid us backwards into that we are sitting around looking at this thing that we just ran up on the federal government trying to make up its mind whether it was going to pay its bills was really a very harsh wake up call to me. Not least because I have responsibility to about 500-600 seniors to make sure they're okay no matter what the federal government does. But here's the thing, we have sufficient capacity so the government could have been shut down for a little while and ain't nobody gonna miss their housing and any meals around us. We as the Black people that I roll with had to take the responsibility for ourselves to make sure that whoever was in office, they're not gonna be able to put our people in the street, at least for a while. So there is still a lot of a sense of codependency on watched a video by Black women making money about should Black women vote Republican, and don't react to that idea. I want you to think about something that was said. I think it was Mentor Shelley who came up on a panel and said, other groups of people are not waiting to be invited to a table, they're building one. And then when they go talk to Republicans, they have their table set and they have some things on it that Republicans need. And that's what we're going to have to begin to do to be able to interact correctly with Republicans. Democrats assume we don't have a table and they don't really want us to have one. I mean, you have to do your mathematics on this. You have to do your history on this. Republicans who tell you that Democrats were the ones that promoted slavery are talking about something that was 158 years ago. But, Pat Robertson, the fellow, the 700 Club, his father was a conservative Virginia Democrat. And his father was old enough to remember when the first conservative poster was put out by Democrats and had "keep the black man down," and that's not what it said. And it had white men standing on black men's necks. Those were all Democrats. Robert Byrd and Jesse Helms and Strom Thurmond's last mentee, direct mentee, is President of the United States now. Mr. Joseph Robinette Biden is in office right now. Y'all got to do the math and do the history. Our dependency has us depending on people that only see us as a chattel. So have we completely escaped? Maybe not. Maybe not. But we really haven't done well on number two. We made some progress on number one. But this is where all these arguments go on. I'm not a chattel, and I'm not going to try to make you a chattel. If I'm free, my freedom does not lower your position relative to me. This, I think, is the cause of the fighting and the exhaustion. It's been an interesting week. And I keep having this lesson this spring, and I'm really looking forward to the summer because I'm really done with some of this. I keep waking up in the morning and finding people having created situations for me on multiple fronts as if they do not know. No, Black people are not my masters either. We keep having this conversation. Black men want to be free to taste the rainbow, but they want Black women to stay race loyal. No, we are not slaves to producing the race. If 20% of Black men are not interested, they should not have any expectation that any number of Black women would be. If you're interested in maintaining the race, get with someone of the other race who's interested in doing that. And by the way, in this country, because of the economics, if you're interested in that, you're not interested in having 1,000 women around hanging on, because you're not going to be able to afford to do that. What you're going to do is put your kids into complete degradation, and then they're not going to value themselves as Black people. And by the way, isn't that what's going on out there right now? But to back up off of that particular angle of the argument, the point is that nobody understands that we can choose or not choose to be constantly worried about whether there shall be 50 million of us in the next decade. Because here's the thing, freedom is one by one. I don't get to look, I'll give you an easy example. My channel is now losing subscribers. I know this kind of conversation is not what some of you like, because I'm challenging you to be responsible for your own life, and some of you don't want to do that. But you know what? I'm not your chattel, meaning I'm going to talk about whatever I want to talk about on this channel. And YouTube is not my plantation. I do not make any money from this, nor do I need to. If we never reach monetization, we never reach monetization. And by the way, I don't own you. If this isn't working for you, I say it all the time. Please go somewhere else. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Someone had the temerity to come up here. I was with you until such and such. I'm like, sir, listening is fundamental. I also said such and such. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. I'm not running a plantation because I'm not going to be chattel. And I recognize that you're also not my chattel. Nor do anything in my life depend, not my self-image, not my sense of worth, depend on you being beneath me like that. And this is what is driving the foolery. I am sick and tired of failing Black men being mad because Black women are refusing to prop them up. I am also equally sick and tired of Black women judging Black men solely by whether or not they can put Black women in a position that's comparable to that of a white woman. When in the 21st century, you can pretty much put yourself in pretty much any situation you want. Get some tech training, learn about crypto, and get a passport, and you can do pretty much whatever you want in the world. The door is open to everybody, but instead of us going through all these open doors, we sit up here fussing with each other. Because again, see, in the United States of America in which we live, one of the reasons why certain people are so mad at us is before 1865, any European, preferably a Northern European Protestant, could come here, get a piece of land, and get to a slave state and be able to work somebody to death. And when African Americans, went out of slavery, that just ruined the gravy train for everybody. If you want to know why there are still a whole bunch of white people, not all, but enough, who want to go back to that time. It was that we don't want to work this hard. We're going to continue to assume that black people are better used as our chattel because when great great granddaddy had it like that, life was better for white people. Again, they need to read too. Life was not better for average people at that time, average white people either, because they were very near to being used as chattel. It's just like if you know the history of northern factories, you would realize that, the powers that be from the Anglo-Saxon mindset who had those castles and stuff and feudalism that you had to study in class didn't think of anybody outside their class as being worth anything, because you're going to go right on back to the Greeks and the Romans. If you were not one of them, you were a barbarian. And even in that system, if you were not a patrician, forget it. Your life wasn't worth anything. It was the Greeks and the Romans who had the patrician men felt like they ought to be able to have, it was inconvenient to have children on the side though, because this is one of the reasons why almost all our words for all the early terms that we have used come from Greece. There is an island called Lesbos, for those who need to know that. And of course, homo means man in Greek, and pedo means child. Now, I'm not trying to have my channel struck. Do your history research on those words and understand that this stuff is not even organic to us. I'm not saying that there have not been cultures that had differences in how people relate, but in terms of how the Greek Greco-Roman men, their sexual pleasure and having access to as much of that as they wanted burst all bounds, man, woman, child, or beast. So when we're sitting around here, as when black men are sitting around here talking like they should be able to live like that, they're not talking about Solomon or David or Abraham, because if you actually read the Bible, you would know those men paid a terrible cost for that. Abraham's second wife, his children are still blowing each other up over that to this day. Y'all ever heard about all the stuff that's been going on since 1948? Y'all ever watch the news and how nobody can get peace in the Middle East? That's why. Solomon lost the chance to be father of the Messiah over the foolery. The kingdom was split and destroyed piece by piece because all those different women with all those different belief systems. So here's what you did. You brought division into your life because you can't harmonize 1,000 women. He said this in Ecclesiastes. Talking about, I've never found an honest woman. No, because you weren't an honest man. And probably the only honest man that Solomon ever knew well was actually his father, who was told not to gather many wives, did it, cross the line with Solomon's mother. And the Lord said, guess what? I will whip you for the rest of your life. Civil war, loss of multiple sons. But see, David repented. David got back on the ball. Psalm 51 and 32. David repented, which is why he was probably the only honest man Solomon ever knew. He said, I found one. And we know who that is. But see, David got his life together. It cost him heavily, but he got his life together. He realized that his problem was between him and God. And if he could return to doing what he knew was right, then he did not need to be stealing women from other people's husbands. He did not have to be going through, even as king, even though he was ruler, he was put there to be steward of his people. He did not have to treat them as chattel. He got all that figured out. Solomon taxed the people to death. His son wanted to keep it going, and that's how the kingdom was split. Because when you adopt chattel making ideas, no matter how high up you are, and ladies, don't get comfortable, because a whole lot of you want to be that too. I pay attention when we've talked about, what it is we're looking for in a man. I pay attention to what happens to the people that promote this too. You ever notice it isn't working all that well for them either, because this cannot work? A human being is not a chattel. I think, again, as Black people, we're going to celebrate Juneteenth, 9 days from when you see this. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. Did you ever think being free was the point of you getting over to someone else and making them responsible for making your life what it needs to be? If you are of that mindset, you have only moved to the other side of the slave making paradigm. I had to pause because my mind is like, did you really just say that to your subscriber? Yeah, I did. Don't let the door hit you on the way out if it hits too hard. That's fine. It's not a plantation. You can leave at any time. I don't need you like that. I'm gonna need us to give this paradigm a rest. I've been saying for a long time. It's now just about 18 months that I've been saying we got to put down the 1864 playbook. As long as we as Black women look at each other as forms of chattel, as long as we don't see the value of each other, we're not going to unify and we're not going to be able to do nothing about anything, including getting away from the worst kinds of men. If we practice treating each other as chattel and not valuing each other together, if we look at our friends and we think, how can we just get whatever it is, whatever experience, whatever needs, whatever configurations, whatever resources out of them, we are softening each other up for the men who want to do the same thing. And when you get past that black ring of men, please understand that Latino and Asian men who are Americanized are invested in being Americanized. Latinos have a 5-step color caste system. Black women, and it's also a heavy patriarchy, are at the bottom, the dead bottom. Asian men are out here conquering Africa. So they and white men are going to eventually just sit down and agree that Black people that don't have respect, that don't have self-respect, do not preserve a seat at the table. It will not matter whether you are a man or a woman. If you do not know how to operate in freedom, you won't. And freedom involves, I am not a chattel, nor am I counting on enslaving you to make what I need of life. I do not need you to be an inferior being to me to be able to make that. And when I want to recolor that for the summertime, if I choose to do that on June 21st, I do not need to consult with you, nor do I need you to become less than, nor do I need to abuse you, nor do I need to demean you. I know that I have been given the power within myself to do what I need to do. I am free. And that freedom includes not needing to step on you. Now, are we going to have hard conversations? Am I not going to have certain things over here? Am I going to have to tell you what you need to hear because I keep seeing the same behavior? Like I said, I've had a lot of conversations. I've had a lot of conversations around the horn. I've listened to a lot of content, and I'm like, we have to understand that the path to freedom is not the other side of the paradigm. Let me ask you a question. Do you think that slave owning men were ever happy or free themselves? I have two gentlemen from history to answer it for you. The answer is no. And only one of them lived long enough to get past slavery to enjoy it, to actually enjoy some freedom in his life. Thomas Jefferson wrote, now, not that he deserved better, this man abused Sally Hemings for 36 years. It started when she was 14, it ended when he died and she was 50. But there is a essay that he wrote called On Manners. And in On Manners, he said that, to condense it, he knew that raising children in slavery was raising them to be petty tyrants. And if the American Revolution had taught them anything, tyrants will be overthrown, meaning that eventually Black people would get free and be in a position to overrun the nation that he and Washington and Madison, all Virginian slave owners, like Mount Vernon and Montpelier and Monticello, right down the road, not quite, but close enough to each other. Also, right across the road from Mount Vernon, almost, was a little plantation called Arlington, and George Washington's wife, Martha Custis, was from there. They adopted one of her grandchildren named George Washington Parke Custis. He only had one daughter. That daughter married Robert E. Lee, who was the son of Colonel Henry Lighthorse Harry Lee, Revolutionary War colonel. Now, Lee lived long enough to surrender, which basically means he came to terms with the fact that he was no longer going to be in the chattel-making class of men. He was going to give all of it up. And of course, it's a way, he expected to be hung. But he got to the point where he realized his community required him to make some different decisions because everybody was going to starve if he didn't do that. So His Christianity, like Mike Pence's Christianity, finally kicked in on January 3rd. Lee's kicked in somewhere between April 5th and April 9th of 1865. The man went out and got a job and became a college president and had so much impact on college life that the fact that I was a journalism major is because of Robert E. Lee. His version of Washington College had the first school of journalism. So the man had a positive impact, net impact on the country afterwards. And only afterwards did this man stop writing letters talking about, I know something is wanting in my life. And only afterwards he's writing letters about, sometimes now I feel free. So if chattel makers were also enslaved in their system, although they certainly received much more benefit, and that does not let any of them off the hook, I think I agree with Jason Back very rarely, but he said what should have happened with all of them, they should have been tried for crimes against humanity and they should have all been hung. None of them should have died in bed. That would have made it a lot easier for the United States to do what it has done yesterday. I'm gonna talk about a certain gentleman being indicted because there's a lesson in there from history that we need to learn. But that is what needed to happen. It didn't. All those guys died in bed. But they all paid a terrible personal price for being on the chattel maker side. Now, if you know history at all, you would understand why I am sick, tired, afraid, and done with the idea that Black people are going to continue trying to get to the chattel maker side, because that will complete our destruction. Do you think the heirs are actual chattel makers in the United States and all these people that have come here to get themselves? Do you know that there are treaty arrangements that allow for people to come and get stores in the Black community and that we are internally colonized? Do you think all the people that benefit from that around the world? You know, the United States has treaties with South Korea about being able to do fake hair and Chinese people can't. You ever notice who has hair shops? You ever notice that? You ever notice that the United States has certain treaties with certain Arab nations, and you ever notice how many corner stores there are in our neighborhoods that have that nationality and gas stations and stuff? Do you think all these people around the world are just gonna move out of the way and let us be chattel makers on their level? If that's what you want in life, the entire world is gonna come out against you. Ain't gonna happen. Ain't gonna happen for long. You know, you pay attention sometimes. Like, who are the Denver Nuggets? Anyway, I mean, I have nothing against them. I didn't even know they existed really before this year. But notice all the stories of failing Black men in the NBA versus the elevation of the Joker, Nikola Jokic. I have nothing against the man. He's a tremendous basketball player. He's doing some things we haven't seen since Wilt Chamberlain. But understand, Wilt Chamberlain is being dethroned. We got to hear over and over and over again about John Moran and what they may or may not do to him. We had Kevin and Kyrie last summer out there acting fool. You got Dylan Brooks out here. Of course, now he made his own bed acting a fool. And we got to hear these stories over and over and over again. We got Shannon and we got Skip arguing with each other. And all this drama, although I must say Shannon Sharpe is handling himself like a gentleman. I don't agree with everything that that man stands for, but he is handling himself like a gentleman. I have to say that for him. That's a storyline for a Black man that I wish more Black men would pay attention to. But understand that the positioning is Black people are too troublesome to have in positions where they have access to real money and capital, whereas we can take these European players and they can play better than some of the Black greats. So it's going to be less troublesome to bring in more people like Luka Doncic, Nikola Jokic. We're out here talking about Steve Nash and Dirk Nowitzki, and all these European, and of course, Larry Bird hasn't gone anywhere. People are talking about Larry Bird like they've never talked about Larry Bird. And somebody messed around and put Larry Bird in the same sentence as if he classes with Michael Jordan. Although both Larry Bird and Michael Jordan probably wouldn't have that much trouble with that because they had deep respect for each other. But I'm just saying, the answer is no. If you think freedom is just so you can get over the top of anybody but a Black person, you about to get smacked hard. You will be reminded of your place. Donald Trump getting 37 indictments ain't gonna do a single thing about that. But if you choose freedom, which is to leave this system of chattel making alone and learn how to be who you are called to be. I know that everybody I'm talking to isn't a Christian. Everybody I've talked to in the past week is not a Christian either. There are going to be some sad separations down the road in the afterlife about this. But all we can do is bear witness to what we stand for. Many are called, few are chosen. In the meantime, there's stuff that we can do because we are able to look at, okay, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, but I don't have to manipulate you. I've shared. You're not interested? I respect you as a human being. Now, let's go do what we can do. Let's go do what we can do. You know, I know people who are very serious about their positions and they have the same respect for me. It is what it is. We go do things that we can do that are good because my Bible says do good to all men. Now, especially those of the household of faith, but that doesn't leave anybody out. That doesn't mean play favorites and ignore everybody who's not a Christian. It does not mean that. But see, whom the Son sets free is free indeed. Since I know that, I got to act like it. And this is the thing. If you are free, you do not have permission to try to go out there and get another slave. Slavery was abolished a long time ago. Read the 13th Amendment. Unless you have a prison to put somebody in, and unless you can charge them with a felony, try and convict them in this system, and guess what? You cannot. You are not the U.S. government. You need to leave that alone. It's like I said, don't blame me, no Hitlerians. Don't do it. I'm also well and truly done with all these discussions whereby we mad at someone else for not doing for us what we think that they just exist to do, and especially when we are not about the business of doing those things for ourselves. I'm well and truly tired of it. I look at my analytics. I look at the videos I do that are helpful, that can help you do capacity, and I see some of you making use of it, and some of you let me know. And that's very encouraging. And of course, I see people leaving that are not interested. Well, go on. Happy trails to you till we meet again. Because you're either going to continue in the chattel cycle on one side trying to get to the other without understanding this ain't it, or you're not. That's entirely up to you. Because why? You're not my slave. You don't have to sit here and listen to me talk to you. I'm willing to wager that when I talk about former President Donald Trump in the next video, a lot more people are going to watch that because people would rather have some noise. People would rather work out a cycle of vindication. People would rather feel like someone else is falling to build themselves up than they would hear content to build them up. I get it now. If I didn't learn anything else in the spring of 2023, I want to thank the 35 people in total that have really helped me understand it this spring. There are 50 million Black people. There are no mass solutions. Everybody got to decide that they want to be free and to live among free people by choice, one by one. There is no way to externalize. We have so many things about solidarity. There is no such thing that the mass has not chosen. Everybody one by one has got to do their work. Everybody one by one has got to decide that they're going to be free. Everybody one by one has got to stop waiting on other people. Everybody one by one has got to get past codependency, waiting on someone else to do it for them. Once you start, if you are meant to get there, the resources will be found. Imagine what it was like for those who established the Underground Railroad, the first people to take that path or to establish it. The people who had to break trail. Imagine what that was like, the level of bravery. A lot of us want the admiration and respect and the love of people around us, and that's both men and women, just in different ways. Do you know there's no shortcut to getting there? I want to feel loved. I want to feel connected. I want to feel admired. I want to feel respected. Some things you can't get from the people around you anyway. This is one of the reasons why a serious spiritual practice is important. Now, I can only speak of the love of God and Jesus Christ. I'm not authorized to talk to you about anybody else, nor do I know. I've read about other religions. I do not recall reading in the Quran that Allah loves individuals, but it doesn't mean it's not there. So I'm not qualified to speak on that. But that sense of love and connection as a Christian is settled for me. So I don't have as heavy a need for you out here to provide that. That helps. And I'm not saying you can't get there without being a Christian. I just don't have an experience with that because I've been a Christian almost my entire life. You have to find a way to get grounded and stop depending on everybody else to be a chattel in that direction. Stop looking to consume people. And unless you can do that, you will never be fully free. You will have just moved from the side of abject slavery to the side of people that lived waiting on the table to turn in terror their entire lives, and who did greater and greater acts of brutality trying to stave it off, only to have their grandson, Robert E. Lee, have to turn it all over anyway. With, of course, a little help from Ulysses S. Grant and the Union Army. And also in that Union Army, the 180,000 United States colored troops, an unnumbered group of people in the Union Navy, and all the black women nurses who served them and whose names are not known because we know that white women were not permitted to serve them as nurses. So, about 300 to 500,000 black people made that happen. The thing about it is, if you choose to be a chattel maker, your day is coming. You will live in fear, a guilty conscience. You won't have any rest. You will understand what it is like to sit up there and have the taste of the things you have extracted be bitter in your mouth. If that's what you want, that's what you're going to get. The taste of dust. So you do all that work to get to another side, to get over the top of another black person, and have that taste be bitter dust in your mouth. And to have the world combine against you. See, black women haven't seen this yet. About 10 years. Wait. Ain't gonna happen. Not here. And Stephanie Perry tells us what? When you leave the United States, you gotta leave the United States mindset. So even if you leave here, you gotta leave that behind. So I'm saying leave it behind now. You don't have to leave. I'm a witness. You don't have to leave. You can choose to be in the world and not of it. You can choose to know what it feels like to be free. Mother Nina didn't make it. Doesn't mean you can't. If you will. All right. My next video is definitely going to have a more publicly accessible topic. We need to say a few things about former President Donald Trump on this historic occasion. And that video I did about Mr. and Ms. Gray being exhausted, to me, is sort of a turning point. There's a lot of stuff I'm just not going to entertain here because it doesn't help us get to where we need to get. I'm only going to entertain subjects that allow us to see where we can be free and also understand what that looks like in light of what's going on in the community and in the country. I need to talk about the acquittal of Travis Rudolph, maybe. We'll see how that continues to shake out. All right, but anyway, thank you for listening. If you stayed here this long, if this is too much for you and you need to head out the door, happy trails to you until we meet again. I don't own you, you don't own me. It's okay. Find your freedom. Whatever you choose to do, please find that. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.